2022. After 2 years of online exclusive competition, due to circumstances none of us could control, we finally had EVO live in person again. And it came at a very important time. The second year of Strive, and the final year of Street Fighter V. The last chance for Street Fighter V to take the biggest stage, and the last chance for a player to be crowned Street Fighter V EVO Proper Champion. And it was my first EVO. A friend and I flew out, and for the first time, traveled for this passion. Our results from competing were subpar, but we still had a good time. We got to meet a lot of cool players and people, and because we were there in person, we were able to hunt for matches that weren't on stream. Smug Girl King was one of the biggest ones. But the climax of the event came on Championship Sunday. We came bright and early, learned we didn't have tickets, bought tickets, and watched the biggest stage of fighting games. After witnessing games we weren't as familiar with, and getting surprisingly into Tekken, finally came the game that we traveled for, Street Fighter V. And boy was it a stacked top 8. Crimson, Ivan, and even players like Daigo and Dokido. But there was one match that stuck to my memory after all this time, and it was the winner's final, Gachikun vs Kawano. Kawano was cementing his status as one of the best in the world, while Gachikun was stacking even more accolades on his already impressive career. Did you know that Gachikun played Sagat in 4? Unrelated, but how you feel about Sagat has to be the ultimate litmus test for Street Fighter. Him and Cody. But the match started, and it was a real back and forth. Both players scrapping in the neutral, just good Street Fighter. But after just a bit, Gachikun was down 0-2. And you may be asking, what does any of this have to do with Rashid? Every Street Fighter is different from the last. They work very hard to make sure that while each game shares the same skeleton, they are different enough to be distinct games. And I think that the character that embodies the mechanics, meta, and systems of Street Fighter V is the very same character that I brought up last week, the Turbulent Wind Rashid. Every Street Fighter introduces new characters, and while the quote-unquote main character for this game was Necro, to the game's detriment, launch Street Fighter V also had Rashid, who had one of the funnier themes. And as I implied last week, Rashid is one of the 2 characters that were evergreen, a character that for the entirety of the game's lifespan was very viable. No matter what season we're in, Rashid will get results. So before I get to the abstract claim of him embodying a video game, let's get into something a bit more straightforward, which is, why was Rashid good? In the grand scheme of things, Rashid is a pretty honest character. You can play him in a very straightforward way, which makes his game plan simple and fair. Rashid's strengths lie in his buttons, as usual. He has strong, long, cancelable buttons that let him dictate the neutral. His stand heavy punch and crouch heavy punch both let him control space, both being cancelable. He has a forward advancing medium punch that takes up a lot of space, cancelable on the first hit. Cancelable crouching medium kick, but the cancel window makes it difficult to consistently single hit confirm. These moves give Rashid threatening normals, making him strong in this aspect of the game. And those are just his cancelable normals. He also has some pretty strong uncancelable ones. Stand medium kick is the standard stand medium kick. Good range, just a solid button. And he has his stand heavy kick. Big range, great as a crush counter, extends his range. The combination of these 2 toolsets gives Rashid a very solid neutral game. Combined with his fast dash and his light spinning mixer, forward moving special that is completely safe, Rashid can move around however he likes, ebbing and flowing to the pace of the neutral. Oh, and he also has a dive kick. Not exactly Cammy levels, but usable enough. He has a fireball, not a very traditional one, but it does give him something he can do from far away. And this may be underrated, but he has one of the best anti-airs in the game. Not in the way that Akuma or Seth have, where you don't want to jump at them, but in that his anti-air is very consistent. Fast startup, hits cross-up, and is even a quarter circle forward input, making a more convenient input than the traditional forward Z motion. Stand medium punch is really good and spammable on pressure, and he has a wall jump to help him get out of pressure. Also, for the majority of the game, he had an invincible reversal, 8-frame startup, very good. And in the final patch, he had it slowed down to a slow reversal, the thing that they just took away from Urien. Not the best, but at least he has something for his defense. Good anti-fireball, the roll lets you cleanly punish most fireballs, and his V-Trigger 2 was very standard, a way for him to get plus frames and empowering his special moves to be better. A cheap 2-bar trigger that gave him extra turns. If I had to describe Rashid's character, it would be a character that basically had everything. All the individual tools that come in handy, but none of these tools were overbearing on their own. They just work together to make a very complete character that doesn't really have many weaknesses. Yes, he has a strong neutral, but it wasn't as oppressive like some other footsies-based characters, which is why I think of him as a relatively honest character. Rashid is a simple character, but also a very consistent character, and I think the tools that he had were pretty emblematic of the entire game as a whole. He had a bad fireball in a game where everyone and their mom had some form of anti-fireball. He had a very good anti-air in a game where jumping was discouraged. He had strong plus normals, I don't think I need to elaborate on that one. A cancelable crouch medium kick, maybe not entirely single hit confirmable, but the idea is there. V-trigger that gives him oodles of plus frames, and a silly -7 overhead. And it's not just that his tools were synonymous with Street Fighter V, it was also his playstyle. Street Fighter V's neutral could be considered a lot slower, with more walking, more buttons, and a lot of confirms. And Rashid is very emblematic of that playstyle, taking it slow, picking your moments. And Rashid's options on the back foot work with the strong defense inherent in the game as well. Rashid is Street Fighter V, and it was with this playstyle that Gotcha-kun was so successful. Very solid player, and certainly a winning player. So let's get back to the scenario that we started at. The player I had just hyped up is down 0-2. These games have been close, but the score tells a different story. So what does he do now? He goes back into character select, helps reset the momentum, but he picks Rashid again. Obviously, Gotcha-kun plays Rashid. But what he does here is switch his V system around. He changes his V skill, and he changes his V trigger. And once he does that, he starts playing a bit differently. He's still playing the neutral, but now he's introducing a couple of new options. V skill 2 gives him even more aerial options, making Rashid's approach from the sky even trickier to stop. And him taking V trigger 1 allows him to activate from full screen and threaten powerful air options. The V skill 2 means that every single jump, Kawano needs to guess. And if he's wrong, then Gotcha-kun gets his turn for free. And just like that, the dynamic of the entire set changed drastically. Like I said, Gotcha-kun is still playing neutral, but now he's heavily implementing the air approach. He was losing on the ground, so he took to the air. And suddenly, it was tied up 2-2. The quote-unquote honest playstyle had to be put aside because it wasn't working. And now, Rashid became a different beast, forcing out the anti-air. And with just a switch of the V system, it's like Rashid became a completely different character. And for me, that's the part that makes me confident in calling him the embodiment of Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V is a grounded, slow-paced neutral game. But that's not the only way to play the game. And it's not even the only way to be successful in this game. And Rashid embodies that perfectly. He can play on the ground, but he can also take to the skies and play a more quote-unquote random style. Rashid also embodies the other half of Street Fighter V, the reaction tests, the knowledge tests, and the guessing. You don't need to play the game in just one way, and the way his V system is implemented is also indicative of the system as a whole. You switch your V system and you can end up playing like a completely different character. Poison with V skill 1 is a fine character. Poison with V skill 2 is a top tier. It gives the players a substantial choice right on character select, and it is an integral part of Street Fighter V's design. And Rashid is the perfect example. Ground game and utility, air game and mix. And I think this is probably why Rashid plays so different in 6. His playstyle conform more to Street Fighter 6's systems, which is why he relies on Drive Rush and his level 2 a lot. Gotcha-kun didn't end up winning that set. This strategy was his second option for a reason. It isn't the most sustainable. And part of the reasoning for this pick was probably because of the hardware they were playing on, along with Colleen's lack of a really good anti-air. The genre may be built around improving and becoming the best player you can be, but once you're in this position, that doesn't matter anymore, and now it's about winning. And it's important to understand when you may be out of your depth and disadvantaged. After all, the set score doesn't change depending on how you beat your opponents. Sometimes you can beat them the way you want to, and sometimes you can't. It's up to the player to understand when to drop the ego and play for the win. And it's not easy to do, but that's what separates good players from great players. No card game video this week. I don't got any good ideas, and sorry about the voice. Couldn't miss an upload. Thanks.